Hi, I'm Bill Pace with Cardinus. I'm here today with Kevin Lombardo, the CEO of DORN. 20 years of being the nation's leading wellness-based pain management, injury prevention, keeping people out of the healthcare and workers' comp system through on-site therapy, education, ergonomics, and technology solutions. Kevin, it's great to sit down with you and have a Q&A session about what's going on in the world right now with remote workers. Talk about latest strategies and just keeping up with helping those employees, those workers, be healthy and pain-free. I'd like to talk to you today just about current data, health and wellness for the remote employees, office-based workers, and then talk about innovative solutions and what's going on with the market. Do you mind if we kind of talk about the remote workers, not just in the U.S., but globally? So some companies have employees that are going to be remote and we don't know when they're coming back. Others have employees that are coming back into the office. Kevin, what are you seeing right now?
Hey, Bill, great to be with you. Hopefully soon we'll be together in person, which kind of tells the story of what we're seeing. We're seeing organizations still, we're still seeing organizations struggling with what does that look like, right? We've seen the fact that organizations who were thinking about bringing employees back into the office have kind of delayed that given the variants that are going on. In addition, I think what we're really seeing and what I'm looking at, even for our organization, to be honest with you, is more of a hybrid model where people are in the office a few days a week, they're at home a few days a week. And I think when people utilize office space now, it'll be more intentional than it'll be, hey, Bill, you need to be in the office 5 days a week from 8:30 to 5 or whatever that schedule looked like. It'll be intentional. It'll be like, hey, we're having a strategy meeting. We got a big client coming into town. Whatever that intentional need is and other collaborative efforts between employees, I think that's where people are clamoring to be in person again. But on the other side of it, there isn't that need to, in theory, to be there all the time. And with that, and so we're kind of seeing that as kind of being where people will end up is more of this hybrid model. Right now, I think it's some organizations are already there. Other organizations are delaying bringing people back. But I think in my personal view, I think that hybrid model, and it's probably a pretty good model too, because it's also something that, as you've been reading and hearing, that there's a shortage of workers now. People have decided because of what's happened over the last 18 months, I'm going to choose an organization. I'm going to choose the type of work that I do, one that maybe is more aligned with my passion. Two, that gives me a little bit more freedom around how I work, when I work, where I work. And so organizations are now starting to have to realize that it's not just the hybrid model from a protection standpoint, it's a hybrid model because that's what employees are kind of demanding. And so there's a couple of dynamics that are happening with that.
No, and I appreciate that. I do think that's where things are going. That's what we're seeing with our clients. And Kevin, I appreciate the fact that you are really looking at data and data mining with your clients as well. Now, as employees are doing this, and we'll touch on productivity, what is your data showing right now with most common injuries? Like, what are you guys seeing from an injury standpoint for the remote workers?
Yeah, what we see when you're in a remote environment, you're more than likely more sedentary than maybe you were when you were in the office. Because if you're in the office, you're able to get up and go to the break room. You hang out at your buddy's office or a cubicle. There was more movement that just naturally happened. Now, when you're at home, we're sitting in front of our computer probably longer than we should. We're seeing an increase of 2.5 hours a day on average of people having screen time. And so the things that they would normally do to take that break, that environment isn't there. So we have to help people realize there's different ways to do that. I mean, for me, I walk my dogs a couple times a day. That gets me up, it gets me moving, it gets them moving and keeps them quiet. They're not interjecting into this call right now, which they like to interject into my calls. But you don't have that same environment. And so what we're seeing is things like carpal tunnel that are becoming more prevalent. That was always there, but if I'm always on my computer, if I'm always using my arms, I'm more prevalent to get that tendonitis, lower backs, neck, and hands and fingers, forearms, elbows, upper back, lower back, all the upper extremities, and then the lower back are starting to have higher risk. In fact, it's not on the slide here, but the National Safety Council predicts a potential increase of 16% over the next 12 months in musculoskeletal type areas. And musculoskeletal issues are one of the largest cost factors. On a direct basis, $20 billion a year. On the indirect basis, somewhere around $60 to $80 billion a year. And when you start thinking, that's just in musculoskeletal issues, not talking about the total impact of pain, where you got lost productivity, you got medication use and potential dependency, you got absenteeism, presenteeism. You add all that up, pain itself is a $600 billion a year issue. What's happening now is that's coming out. I'll be honest, we had a client who, when COVID happened, they asked us to kind of leave the premises, right? Nobody knew what was going on. And they said, hey, we'll call you when we know you can come back on site. They called us a month later because all their remote workers now were suffering because they didn't have the ergonomic setups. They didn't have those issues. So that 16% is going to start happening. And if pain and discomfort is a $600 billion a year issue, that's only going to potentially could explode. So those are some of the things that we're seeing.
Kevin, what are companies doing? We're talking about how these injuries might manifest themselves from discomfort and pain into an injury. What are companies doing now to enhance their wellness plans for the remote workforce?
Yeah, and so first I want to start with, I think, I'm going to come back to what I said before, that first companies are evaluating what the needs are, right? This thing hit us, it all kind of slapped us in the face. We didn't know which way was up, which way was down. So I think organizations by now have done the studies to understand what their employees are going through, what they're dealing with, what the impacts of those are. And now they're trying to create programs that will help them in a way that will support their employees who are either remote, hybrid, back in the office. I think it encompasses everybody, to be honest with you. But from the remote standpoint, it's even more because we did a podcast with a mutual friend of ours who used to be the global wellness director of a large gaming organization. And in that podcast, the one point that really sticks in my head is ensuring, when you talk about remote workers, ensuring that the support that you give your employees who are on site, you're giving the same level of support to an employee who's remote. And I think that's the biggest thing that I took away from what Martha was describing and what I think organizations are doing. They have to figure this out now. A lot of organizations had remote workers before. They probably didn't have a lot of programs that really touched them. They now realize, because of the amount of people working remotely, they have to have programs that can touch their entire workforce, be it remote, be it hybrid, be it in the office. And so I think it's important that things like telehealth, digital wellness programs, access. I mean, there's more and more organizations, as you know, we provide a live virtual self-care or self-massage type of programming. There, more and more organizations are looking at those type of things, whether it's the type of work we do, whether it's with a PT. They're offering these type of programs to their employees, not who traditionally they offer them to employees on site. Remote workers never had access. Now they're looking at providers like you and like me and saying, we got to provide these to everybody. How do we do that? So I think that's the change that's really happening, Bill, is I got to think about my remote workers as much as I think about the person who's working in the office or in the plant or in the warehouse here.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. So Kevin, as we kind of look to the future and what it holds for the next 2 to 5 years, it's not just about pain management, is it? Like we're also looking at
No.
mental health or behavioral
Yes.
medicine. And I mean, what do you see the future holds for the next 2 to 5 years, even, post pandemic when we come out of this?
Yeah, I think one, the hybrid model is going to be more and
Yeah.
more a prevalent thing. Two, how do I meet my employees where they are? And what I mean by that is either where they physically are, right? Or two, where they are in a spectrum. Because the other thing that we saw is people have decided to make choices. Like I said before, I'm either going to work because I'm going to take a job because it's my passion now, because it has some meaning for me, because I can work remote, because of the other things that the organization can offer. And when you start talking about mental health and wellness, when you start looking at the stress that people have lived under for the last 16 months, we kind of forget that people lived under stress before that, right? It may have been racial unrest, it may have been political unrest, it may have been whatever it was, domestic unrest. Layer on top of that a pandemic, layer on top of that other issues that are going on that have actually grown in intensity. And organizations have to actually think about that. So they're looking at whether it's mental health, whether it's digital telehealth, uh, apps that can incorporate wellness programs and things of that nature. And what's happening, Bill, is there's a kind of a coming together confluence of safety and wellness, where traditionally they were just HR had wellness, operations had safety. They're kind of now coming together, because if you're an HSE executive, it's health, safety, and environmental. You have to be thinking about wellness now. You have to be thinking about environmental, the place that people work within, whether it's their home office, whether it's their couch, whether it's in the office. So I think there's just a whole shift going on I have to provide some level of programming that people are going to engage in, that people are going to take advantage of, because it's also becoming a recruiting tool. When we talk about retention, absenteeism, and turnover, it's a recruiting tool that I think organizations have to do.
Yeah, no, I think it is about doing the right thing and doing the right thing and engaging employees in the wellness programs and behavioral medicine. It helps with recruitment and retention.
Absolutely.
And Kevin, we look at this now and we see this from our end that, Cardinus is working more and more with HR departments. Ergonomics is being swallowed into total worker health, but it kind of
Yes.
goes beyond that, doesn't it? We can, and especially with your programs, you can even work with dependents, where at Cardinus we have programs for students, for kids,
Yes.
for parents, for teachers, because they're tethered to technology for 7 to 9 hours a day. So with DORN and Self Care Plus, it doesn't have to be just about the workers and the employees. You can reach out to everybody. So does that help in how are companies protecting their employees? And we look at it from the health insurance side, not just their employees, but their dependents on the health insurance side. So MSK is a part of all of that. So
Yes.
on the DORN side, how are you able to do that? How are you able to protect employees and their dependents
Yeah.
inside of your companies?
No, that's a fabulous question, Bill. And I'll be honest, for us, it's an evolution that we have come to over the last 18 months and beyond. We were doing some of this prior, but the last 18 months have really said, okay, we got to have this. And I think, honestly, and I'm going to be pretty transparent here, it's the partnership that we have with you folks, looking at things like healthy working, your program that builds in education, wellness, as well as ergonomics. You layer on top of that live virtual ergonomics. You layer on top of that a mobility or conditioning app that has the ability to access 600 exercises or stretches that can reach people, that give based on what their needs are. Not, nobody just goes in and says, oh, I want exercise 237 here. That you give them a set of exercises to build strength and conditioning, or just the fact to stay healthy. and now two other things: our live self massage, but two, the partnership we've done with you now to incorporate more of an on-demand self-care program that's teaches people how to do deep tissue work themselves, how to take care of it themselves, and gives them not only the step-by-step way to do it, gives them a little video, gives them the exercise that goes along with that. So if I have a neck issue, what's the technique for me to go deep and take care of that? But then what's the exercise to keep, whether I want it as an active or a passive exercise, whether I want strength or mobility, whatever the needs are, what are those exercises to help? So honestly, I think, to be blunt, I think our partnership with you all to be able to incorporate in more of a singular platform, the accessibility for some of these on-demand, your assessment tools, your risk monitoring tools, some of our wellness tools, that people have the ability to access it. And I like the fact that your system and the way it's deployed can access dependents and students and things of that nature. And then if people need to opt in for something live, whether it's a live virtual ergonomics or live virtual self massage, they can do that. They can opt into something that is a little bit more intensive and one-on-one versus an app that kind of gives them a wellness portal to a number of different solutions. So our partnership, I think, is going to help really reach a lot of different people with a lot of different types of solutions. And I look forward to continuing to work with you all, your clients and our clients, to say, what else do they need? Not what else do we need to offer them? What else do they need that we can present to them in this fashion and in this portal?
No, I agree with that. And Kevin, I really appreciate your time today and sharing this information. There's a virtual conference coming up. You're going to be at a conference in Austin soon. How can they learn more about our partnership and the programs that we have?
Sure. And my dog's decided to join us, so I'm just going to go to the end here. They could reach out to you directly. They could reach out to us at the 888 number. But yeah, we're going to I think we're doing something in a couple of weeks where we're going to be presenting this in a little bit more depth, do some demos and walk through the program. So, and get people access, let them try it, let them test it, let them play with it. And then hopefully it's something that they see value in.
Yeah, fantastic. Kevin, I really appreciate your time today. Looking forward to our virtual conference coming up in September and getting together with you at the next couple of live conferences. It'll be good to see you face to face.
Yes, let's break some bread. Bill, thank you. Really appreciate your time today.
Kevin, thank you.